What is up, my fantastic friends? Welcome back to the channel. I am the Crow Lector. And don't worry, you're not seeing double. No. Today we're taking a look at two of the new figures from the Fantastic Four First Steps movie wave Marvel Legends, Johnny Storm and his even hotter alter ego, the Human Torch. Because you know what they say, behind every man is a very similar man who is on fire. Or something like that. I think it's a Greek proverb, something. But sit back, relax, and let's go over these two to see if they're actually hot stuff or if this flame is better off snuffed. We'll go ahead and start flame offed, if you will, with just Johnny himself. And if this is not something that Johnny would truly enjoy, taking a look at himself, two Johnnies, man, are you kidding me? He would just be all over that. As you can see, he matches his on-screen look pretty well. We'll go ahead and take a look at the packaging. Similar to Reed and Ben, comes in the nice, kind of newly redesigned Fantastic Four, almost kind of retro packaging with the old Marvel Studios logo, an old Hasbro mascot, of course, a nice, slightly, I guess, embossed logo here, nice and shiny. The Human Torch symbol there. The art of Joseph Quinn as Johnny on the side there. And then, of course, on the back, the nice full-bodied shot. And he resembles him pretty well, I will say. Likeness-wise, it's not quite there for me. It does look slightly better from certain angles, but Joseph Quinn just might have one of those faces that's a little bit difficult to capture. Comparing him to the other Hollywood dreamboat that's in the movie, Pedro Pascal, the Pedro likeness is much, much better than the Joseph likeness. And I don't know if that's just because this is, the third, fourth, fifth Pedro Pascal figure that Hasbro has done, whereas this is the first Joseph Quinn. So maybe in a couple figures he'll have a much better likeness. But even still, it's not the worst. It just it comes off as a little like stunt double-y. But you still get the nice, really vibrant blue eyes. In the trailer, they look a little unnaturally blue to me. I'm interested to see how it plays out on screen in such huge, vivid detail. Hopefully it won't look quite as unearthly. He has a nice kind of dirty blonde hair. There might be a little bit too much dirtiness in it. I do think he's usually a little bit more blonde, but it's a small nit. It's another thing where, depending on how the light hits it, it definitely does look a little brighter, a little more vivid. Sculpt-wise, very, very nice. And I do really like the added bits of white on Johnny, compared to Reed, who is a lot more blue, a lot more simplistic. And you would think that, especially between these two, since they have pretty much the same body type, they could easily just reuse the body, but I am very happy to say that is not the case. If you bring them up close, there are plenty of differences. Reed has that sculpted collar here, whereas Johnny, there's no sculpted collar, obviously the white paint, and then the lines on Johnny are different as well. Same with the chest piece. This lower half on Reed, not only are the wrinkles different, but it doesn't have quite as much piping, I guess you could call it, or whatever those symmetrical lines are. The Four logo, obviously the same. The belt, I believe, is the same. It just might have a little bit different paint apps on it. The black on this one is a little bit thinner than on this, but otherwise it looks very, very similar. So I think that might be one of the only things they do share. As weird as it sounds to say, the crotch piece is different as well. And the upper thighs, again, you have much more of that, those kind of line work here, different symmetrical line in the middle here. Reed has this kind of, I don't know exactly what to call it, on his right leg, not on his left, oddly enough. The knees as well, Reed has that little fold. Johnny does not. And then the boots, actually, another thing they easily could have just reused, are different. Reed has that little bit of silver in the black dot there. Johnny does not. His are just kind of plain white all the way through. So that's nice to see. They did put in some effort here. That's very good. Hasbro easily could have just taken the easy way out, gone with the same, but they didn't. Oh, and the gloves as well. The gloves, Reed has it's kind of plain white gloves, whereas Johnny has more of that white line here. Same as with Reed, you can swap out his hands, but just be aware of the communicator. The communicator does come off. It is a separate piece. You might want to just go ahead and glue it on if you plan on keeping it, just so you don't lose it. Other than that, Johnny comes with pretty simplistic accessories, just these two fists, and that's it. Which is a little bit disappointing because, as you can see on the packaging here, he has two flamey hands. So it would have been nice if they threw those in, but as we'll see later, if you do get the Human Torch, he comes with extra flamey hands, so you can always recreate this, which will probably be my default look. But before we get into that, real quick with Articulation, he has your typical ball-jointed head, and he can look backwards and forwards pretty decently. Has your typical swivel hinge on the arms here. You can T-pose, no butterfly joints, which not so much on Johnny, but I think especially on Torch would have really come in handy. For some reason, my Johnny, on his left arm, it's kind of difficult. The joint there doesn't want to go down, and I'm afraid to break it. As you can see, there's been a... There, I got it down, but as I push it, it kind of pushes the peg out there. So if I want to get it down, I kind of have to push it back and then down and then bring it back down. I'm sure there's a way to fix that. Maybe pop him in some hot water. We'll see. But he does have joint at the mid waist there. You get decent forward and backward movement, more so forward than backward. But you don't want a hunchback Johnny. He does move at the waist as well. It would have been nice to have like a full ab crunch, especially for the Torch, which you want to get into a lot of like cool flying poses. But your typical kind of, excuse me, Johnny, barbell crotch there, so he can do the splits, he can kick forward, not so much backward. His glutes get in the way there. His perfect Johnny Storm derriere. He does move at the thighs as well. Double hinges actually on the elbows and the legs, so you do get a fair amount of posing and some movement at the foot as well, sort of a swivel hinge there. Now with the boots and with the gloves, it looks like there could be a cut there, or there should be a cut there, but there's not, so you don't get quite as much movement there. Obviously, you can move the wrist to kind of help with that, but it would have been nice to have that one extra one, just like what Ben gets on his. Obviously, he's a little bit in more need of more articulation, being the big guy that he is, but it would have been nice for these smaller figures as well. And we'll go ahead and show Johnny with the Human Torch accessories. These are the two fists that the Torch comes with. He does also have two flat, kind of flying hands. I will probably do one of each. That's just kind of my preferred look. That way, they can each have one fist, one flat hands. That's what he looks like with them both. Now, I'm probably going to try and do something along the lines of this, where he's doing like a fist in the hand kind of thing. Because of the articulation, he can't really hold that pose. As you can see, his hands kind of just drift apart. So I may have to do a little finagling there to get him to stick. Otherwise, he looks pretty good. Kind of like strike like a kung fu kind of look to him. That like hi-ya! All in all, he's a pretty simplistic figure. I would say he's probably the most simplistic, the most, I don't want to say boring of the line, but especially without these added accessories, there's really not much to him. And as you'll see here in a second, when we do look at the torch, there is more they could have thrown on him. While I understand they had to have 6 figures to round out the wave, even without a Build-A-Figure, I do wish that Johnny was just a little more interesting. Because as we can see, Torchy here, much more intricate of a figure. With his packaging, we get the nice classic Human Torch pose there. Excuse the glare. And a nice smiley portrait on the side. Of course, he shares the little loser or number 1 pose that Johnny has. But yeah, there's a lot more going on with this one. Obviously, first and foremost, the translucent plastic. Very, very nice. Very cool effect. You can see all the way through him. Ooh. So, even though my setup is not necessarily the best, if you were to shine a light directly behind him, you could see all the way through. Get a nice X-ray. But just aside from that, all the extra flame effects, not only on the head, of course, but his shoulders, the hands have the little extra things, and then some extra little flames on his feet and his ankles. Now, I will say all of these are separate pieces. They are removable. Other than this one, I will say, it does look like it is removable. You can pry it up a little bit, but it does seem to be affixed to his collar there. So you could, I'd assume, get it off. I don't know how easy it would be to get back on. So for people who are less talented with customizing and things like moi, you may just want to go ahead and leave it on. But everything else comes off. Some of them rather easily. Or I should say, yeah, the fist flames seem to be affixed on there. But the flying hands are not. And these ones actually on mine keep sliding off. So that's another thing. If you wanted to, you could glue them on. We'll see about that. Other than that, he is pretty much the exact same as the Johnny figure. See, there it goes again. And he does actually have the communicator as well, just in red on this side. So translucent red. So just be mindful of that as well. This one might even be a little bit harder to see if it does, topple to the floor. So just be mindful. And the question that I think everyone always wonders about is, are the parts compatible with each other? And yeah, honestly, I mean, they don't necessarily look the best. I do think the Human Torch parts on Johnny do look better than Johnny on Human Torch. I don't know if he can necessarily control his powers like this, or he can like single out parts of his body to flame on, or if his suit has any sort of like non-flame abilities. But yeah, it doesn't look too bad. The one thing I will say though is that the Human Torch head on Johnny is a little bit loose. Not terrible, especially at an angle if you can get it to catch the neck a little bit. We don't have the same issue with Johnny's head on Torch, but I do think that looks like it doesn't necessarily belong. But I do really love the translucent plastic on this guy. The fully powered up Human Torch was always a really, really cool look that I think, at least in my opinion, all the movies really have nailed, especially that first one with Chris Evans. Not necessarily the best movies, but I do think Chris Evans was a fantastic Johnny, no pun intended. I think he really captured like the hot-headedness of Johnny. Again, no pun intended, but also the flame effects, especially for the time, looked pretty good. This one, you have the nice kind of glowing yellow eyes. Fully painted, no, not any sort of piping or anything on that one. But I do love how you can see through to the joints, see kind of the inner workings of the figure. I always thought that was a really cool touch. I love action figures, obviously, and so seeing, all the work that goes into the insides of them was always really cool to me. Obviously, with nowadays, with all like the new technology, the pinless joints and everything, you don't really see as much going on in there, but still enough. And then, of course, with the Human Torch, you get these black painted lines, which, again, just like with the thing in his brow, a nice homage to the old drawing styles of Jack Kirby. You get those, I think they're like literally known as Kirby lines. So that's really, really cool to see. You can also see, I don't know how well it comes across, but this little figure 6-pack. You go, Johnny. You keep working out. Other than that, though, the articulation's pretty much the same. Because of all the nice Hades-esque flames, you don't get as much backward movement, but you do get some. Oddly enough, I think, or it seems like maybe he looks down a little bit more. So that's cool. And again, this is where I think maybe some butterfly joints could have really benefited him. I think even with the flames, you could have probably worked them in, maybe just had the flames overlap, like hide the joint a little bit. But, you know, he can still do what you need him to do, which a lot of people, you know, the flying pose, can do that pretty easily. But with the head being what it is, unless you're looking at him like from below, isn't able to look forward. Maybe if you were to remove these flames, you could probably get a little bit more backward movement, but I like them how they are. So I'll probably just leave him. Have him do something similar to like how he is on the package, where he's like looking down. I think those butterfly joints could also help with kind of matching the pose of the packaging there. It's not the end of the world, of course, and I'm sure people will figure out ways to do it. Same waist articulation. And this one, maybe just because of the sweater pieces, it does feel like he has better waist movement. Maybe I'm just making things up, but who knows? Waist swivel. The belt is the same as the regular Johnny. Have his hot nuts, his fire crotch there. The swivel, of course, on the top of the thigh. The double elbow and double knee. And then you do get the foot articulation as well. And because the flames here are movable, you can kind of move them however you need to get a little bit more articulation. I think it would have been cool if they'd added even more flame effects. The stand is another thing that he does not come with. I think it would have been nice if they'd given him some sort of flight stand, maybe even one that was like decorated with fire somehow. That would have been really cool. I do think, of course, I would probably have pushed it over into deluxe territory. But again, like I said with Ben and Reed, it is nice that, you know, they had, I guess, the opportunity to make him a deluxe, but they didn't. So I appreciate that. And here he is resting on the Jean Grey Phoenix base. I don't remember who I saw do this, so I can't give full credit. I'm so sorry. But I did see someone online do this, and I thought it looked really, really cool. They did it much better than I am. This is just kind of a quick little look. Just like with the Thing, this is a figure that you could easily spruce up. You may just have to borrow some effects and accessories from other figures to do so. That'll about do it for these two Johnnies. I will say, while I really do love the Human Torch figure, I would say that's definitely the stronger of the two. And if I can find a way to glue down or at least stabilize those extra flames, I do think this is one of the better figures in the wave. Whereas Johnny himself, not so much flame on as lukewarm. It's cool that we got just a plain Joseph Quinn figure. And of course, I am interested and excited to see how not only his costume, but his figures and his likeness grows as we get more movie appearances, more figures. If there was any figure in the wave I'd say you could skip, it would probably be this guy, or at the very least wait until he's on sale. If you do grab both figures and you want to spruce him up a little bit with some of the extra parts, go right ahead. I do think it really adds to the figure. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Are you picking up Human Torch and Johnny? One or the other? If you do have them, what are your thoughts? Let me know below in the comments. If you were the 5th member of the Fantastic Four, if they became the Fantastic Five, what would be your power given to you by crazy space radiation? While you're down there, go ahead, if you don't mind, leave a like and subscribe so you can be notified whenever I post more nerdy rants, figure reviews, just whatever tickles my fancy and brings me joy. I would love to share my nerdy joy with the world. I really appreciate you guys watching. I will be back soon with more creepy Crowlection content, but in the meantime, don't forget, stay spooky.